I want to bring in Bernstein, an attorney who's familiar with the Georgia process. BJ, where do we know where Troy Davis would be at this point? I mean, if this was stayed before, and this was obviously stayed before the 7 o'clock time frame, where is he?
Well, word is from folks that are down there that I'm hearing from is that he is in the jail and probably does have the IV, because it makes sense that they do that about an hour before they put the sedative, give him the opportunity to have a sedative and have everything ready.
So you think he's laying on the execution gurney with an IV?
Or if he's either on the gurney or somewhere with the IV ready to go. Unless I mean, they may have detached it by now because so many hours have gone by, but the delay happened around 6:30, less than an hour before the 7 o'clock execution time. So clearly preparations had already been made at that point. And so unless the jail decided to withdraw that and have the doctors take it out because of the lengthy period that's gone by now, that part is not confirmed.
And Jeff Toobin, in terms of what is going on the Supreme Court end, I mean, we talked about this in the 8 o'clock hour. They're not all together, and they're spread out in different places. Are they talking on the phone? Are they talking via email?
Well, this is a established procedure that the court has. There is a group of people who work in the court's clerks, the Supreme Court clerk's office, who do nothing but death penalty cases, and they have procedures in place when an execution is upcoming where they can reach all of the justices either by phone or email or both. Oftentimes, the justices simply respond, you know, on no stay, and it's a fairly simple procedure. But if there is disagreement on the court, if there is, there are some justices or even more or even close to a majority that want to stay, they can have phone calls with each other, and it can get quite complicated because after all, there are 9 of them. You know, it all depends on how they respond to the specific case in front of them, but it can be complicated, it can take a while, and 3 hours after the scheduled time, that is very unusual.
David, Jeff, BJ, just stick around. We're going to have more with you in a moment. The family of the murdered police officer, Mark McPhail, is convinced that Davis is guilty. I spoke earlier with minutes in different locations, and the scene on the left is inside, just outside the prison. BJ, in terms of what happens now, what is the process?
The process will be that once officially the prison officials get this word that the Supreme Court denies, this death warrant has already been in place. They could have already killed Troy Davis, but they waited to the Supreme Court, and now I'm afraid that it will not be much longer till this man is put to death by the state. And I got to tell you, Anderson, this is very hard to hear, because this is the whole country and the whole world has been riveted by this. And it has really touched off a debate that I've never seen in my legal career with regard to the death penalty, and an entire generation is seeing up close and really reevaluating how we think about this and what's happening. I'm disturbed.
I think I just want to hear, could we just hear what the sound? It's the crowd outside the prison where Troy Davis is now set to be executed. You can just hear them chanting, "We are Troy Davis." David Mattingly is there. David, am I correct? Is that what they're saying, "We are Troy Davis"?
That's right, Anderson. It's a chant that they've had quite a few times during demonstrations over the past week leading up to today. Tonight, it sounds a little bit different to me. Before, there was defiance. Tonight, it seems more personal. People making a strong statement that when they say, "We are Troy Davis," they are saying something about the system that they believe that was flawed, that allowed for his execution. All of these people, so many of them being so close to this case, probably for a decade or more, tonight, now realizing that the work that they've done, the pressure they've tried to put on public officials, the outcome that they were looking for is not going to happen.
The court has denied a last-minute appeal from Troy Davis's attorneys, meaning the state of Georgia can now proceed with his execution. We're talking with David Mattingly, who's outside the prison in Jackson, Georgia, also with senior legal analyst Jeffrey Toobin and criminal defense attorney B.J. Bernstein, who's also a former prosecutor with a lot of experience in the Georgia courts, including with the state superior judge who denied Davis's appeal today. And as we continue to look at that picture outside the prison, I just want to bring in B.J. and Jeff. B.J., in terms of the process now that happens, do we have any sense of how quickly Troy Davis may be put to death?
I would imagine within the hour. I mean, chances are he is ready with the IV. They're probably getting everybody together into the room, and the process will start fairly soon, because I think it's been a long night, and unfortunately, I think this is about to happen.
Jeff Toobin, in terms of
Charlie?
Jeff,
David, Charlie?
Jeff, how many people, do we know how many people, or maybe BJ, do we know how many people will actually witness this execution?
Well, there'll be 5 reporters from various news agencies that will be present. There'll be members of the families. I'm not sure if anybody from the Davis family is actually going to be there. As we just heard from the slain officer's mother, they have family members there, and then there'll be some prison officials. So probably around 15 to 20 people present.
Jeff, why do you think this case has garnered so much attention internationally out of all the executions that occur in the United States?
Because there has been substantial doubt by a lot of people that he's guilty. I mean, I think it really is as simple as that. This case has had so many peculiar twists and turns legally, but they all come down to the same issue. You know, there are a lot of legal issues surrounding the death penalty.
I just got to jump in. We've just been informed from officials at the prison that the execution will begin in 30 minutes. It is now 10:38. So I'm sorry, Jeff, continue.
Well, it's just, you know, there are a lot of legal issues surrounding the death penalty. You know, do people get good lawyers? You know, is the law enforcement system fair? But the fundamental thing that moves most people is, are we executing people who are not guilty? And this case is the one where I think people focused around the world. I mean, really, since Julius and Ethel Rosenberg were executed for espionage in 1953, this case has garnered the most attention and outrage on the part of some people. And, you know, that's a big deal. And it comes at a time when public support for the death penalty has been shrinking a little, but at a time when actual executions and actual death sentences have gone down a lot in the last 15 years.
Joining us on the phone is CNN contributor Roland Martin. Roland, you probably, I don't know if you heard, we just had on the mother of the slain officer who expressed her, I don't know that satisfaction is the right word, but just a sense of she's looking for peace moving forward from tonight, and certainly believes that Troy Davis is guilty in the murder of her son. Roland, at this point, what do you make? Were you surprised at how long the Supreme Court took to make this decision? I was having some problem, obviously, getting in touch with Roland. Thought we had him. BJ, are you surprised at the length of time that it took the Supreme Court?
I was surprised, just like Jeff, but I think Jeff really toned on in what the theme has been here, too much doubt. And Anderson, I know you've done a lot of, people from CNN have done a lot of stories about the problems with eyewitness identification. The number of times, for instance, in a lineup, 17 to 18% of the time, people pick someone who is incorrect, even though they say they saw them. And that's what this case was based on. And add that to what we're seeing historically of the work of the Innocence Project, where over 200 people who were innocent and had lengthy jail sentences turned out to be innocent, is causing everyone to question, why are we putting to death someone that we are not sure committed the offense? and bringing about the larger question about the death penalty to a new generation. And I think looking at Twitter, looking at who's even down there right now, for instance, celebrities, Big Boy of Outkast is down there and has brought so many young people from Atlanta University, Clark Atlanta, the schools here. I even heard about some elementary school students who came down to Jackson, Georgia. They are being introduced to the very issues that supposedly seem settled about the death penalty.
Jeff, though, to BJ's point, you know, she was raising the point of there's so much doubt about evidence. Yet time and time again, courts have looked at this, and the Supreme Court even had another judge look at this. When was it? Last year?
It was 2 years ago.
I mean,
that's what makes this case so difficult, is that, you know, he has had the most exhaustive judicial review of any prisoner on death row that certainly I have ever heard of. But the phrase the court always uses about death penalty cases is that death is different. The level of certainty that we demand of death penalty cases is different from those that we demand in a case where people are in prison and can be released if we found out they made a mistake. And it's important to emphasize that, you know, the courts have never found that he was innocent, even though the evidence is certainly more ambiguous than it is in most of the cases that result in execution in this country.
All right, we're going to be right back with more coverage of the execution of Troy Davis, scheduled to happen in less than 30 minutes. Breaking news tonight, the execution of Troy Davis expected to happen just a little bit past the top of the hour. Back with us from outside the prison in Jackson, Georgia, David Mattingly, also senior legal analyst Jeffrey Toobin, CNN political analyst Roland Martin, and criminal defense attorney B.J. Bernstein. You're looking at a scene outside the Supreme Court there. Obviously, the justices are not there. They are in a different variety of different locations. That may be one of the reasons why it took so long to get the final word from them. The final word did come down in the last, I guess, 30 or 40 minutes or so. We're going to obviously continue to stay on the air until we have a word of the execution, which we anticipate happening just in a matter of a few minutes. BJ, at this point, what is the process?
Right now, the process is the final preparations of Troy Davis. He already had the IV in his arm. They'll be getting him into a room, and they will administer a lethal injection. And the IV
is for a sedative that he's allowed to have to calm him before.
Exactly, the IV to calm him before, and then he'll go in and there'll be an injection. It will be witnessed by members of the media, members of law enforcement, and then, as we heard, some of the family members from the slain officer, and then, of course, some of the Davis family members have the option to be present as well.
And is he allowed to say anything before the injection is administered?
He is briefly allowed to say something. He had an opportunity earlier today to say something, and he declined, saying that he didn't want a special meal, he didn't want to do anything special because he believed he was going to live. So we will see whether he's going to say something.
I believe in 2008 he was scheduled to be executed as well and was offered a last meal and declined it, saying that it was not going to be his last meal, and obviously he was right then.
Exactly. This is the about fourth time that he has been close to death, and unfortunately, in the next few moments, it's going to be a reality.
We're going to take a quick break.